Hi, welcome back. This is the second video in a series of 4 about UAM CorpusTool to introduce you to the basics of how to use it. In this video, I will be working with the cars essay that we brought into our project last time and showing you how to create what's called a layer up here. So basically a layer is in its simplest terms, it's a taxonomy. It's a graphical representation of the scheme that you will be using to tag your documents. Just to recap really quickly, before you get to this step, there are some things we went over in the last video. You need to have a corpus to work with. For this example video, I've only got one file, but usually you'd have more. You have to have digitized it somehow, either typed it or scanned it and saved it as text files, txt. And you have to have whatever your research interest or question is. In mine, it was error analysis, so looking at typical errors grammatical errors made by ESL student writers. There are lots of other options, and I think I will tell you more at the end, but just really quick, I just wanted to show you, here's a paper written by someone who used UAM CorpusTool, and they were not looking at errors, they were looking at, it's very interesting, I need to read this paper when I have more time, but attitudes towards refugees in Europe in different countries, and they were using what's called appraisal analysis, which I'm not familiar with, but it sounds really interesting. So they were using this taxonomy down here, so looking at the emotions that people were expressing when they talked about the issue of the refugee crisis, I guess you'd say. So they were using the program in a completely different way than what I'm doing. Another example I came across was somebody who was studying abstracts of academic papers, and they were looking at rhetorical moves, and they had created a scheme kind of like this of different rhetorical moves that people make in their abstracts, and I think they were in part comparing from discipline to discipline what the standards are or the expectations. So they had taken moves like summarizing a source, presenting results, stating a research question, things like that. So I don't want to give the impression that this program is only for error analysis. Maybe that is one of the more simple applications. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a taxonomy based on Dana Ferris. She includes this in many of her books. Let me pull it up really quick. This is a pretty simple taxonomy, so it works well for showing in a video. So it's just got 7 categories, so verb errors, noun ending errors, article errors, wrong word errors, sentence structure errors, spelling errors, and other errors. And so this is copied from Ferris and Hitchcock, 2005. She recommends doing this at the beginning of a term and also throughout the term, but at the beginning as a kind of a diagnostic to help choose which direction to take the class in or which things to focus on. So this is a chart in the book. This would all be done by hand, just with paper and pencil. So this would be like an example of an essay, and so here are the 7 categories, and then going down here, each error. So the first error, you'd say which type it was, and the second error, the third error, and I think this would be for one paper, so you'd have a chart like this for every single paper, and at the bottom you'd add up the totals. So this works great. If you had a lot of papers or more categories, it could start to get a little confusing, which is where this program is really useful. So what I'm going to do, I've got my essay here. I'm going to click layers, and then I'm going to click add a layer. Let me drag this so you can see it. So I'll click start. I'm going to come up with a name. So because it's from Dana Ferris, I'm going to just call it Ferris. And here you have these 2 choices. I will come back at the end and maybe walk you through some of the choices, but I don't want to lose people here right at the beginning. So I'm going to just jump right in. I'm going to choose manual annotation. And again, I'll go over these choices again at the end, but I'm going to click design my own. And these two, I'm going to do both. I'm going to do this one first, the Dana Ferris scheme, and then I'll show you this one as well, because you will probably need both. Now I've been given these choices. Error analysis is a very common approach, so they've actually included some extra options for people doing this type of research. So I'm going to click this. It basically gives you a little extra text box at the bottom where you can enter a correction, like a way that the student might have said it in a grammatically correct way. I'm going to click that. So it tells me what I'm doing, create layer. So it adds in this tan colored box. So again, it doesn't feel like we've done much yet, but now we have a container for our taxonomy. So I'm going to click, I don't know what this edit details is. I think it's a new feature that they haven't finished yet. So maybe in the next version. So edit scheme. So here I am brought to this graphical interface. I will make it a little bigger. And it kind of, there's a little bit of redundancy when you start working with these taxonomies. Just know that for each kind of heading or overall top level category, it kind of appears twice. So just ignore that is the best way I can explain it. So we've got Ferris and Ferris type, and there's some reason why it has the two notations, but I'm not equipped to explain it. So just know that will happen. It started out here with 2 for me, and I'm gonna just click this one. I'm gonna click rename feature. And on our list of 7, the first one was verb errors, so I'm just going to create that. Click OK. It turns everything into lowercase, and it can't use spaces, just like web page addresses, so it will, wherever you had a space, it will put an underline. Click this rename feature. So the second category was noun ending errors. I'm just going to type that. And then I'm going to keep going. Oops, so you don't want add system. You want to click over here and click add feature. So the third one was article errors. And I guess I don't need to bother with typing capital letters because it comes out lowercase. And then the next one was wrong word errors. So add feature. And then there's sentence structure errors. So we'll add that. And then we've got spelling errors. And then the last one is other errors. So now I've got my 7 categories from the Dana Ferris book. And that's pretty much all I need. I'll show you at the end examples of more complicated taxonomies that have lots and lots of things going off the screen and you have to scroll to be able to see it and so forth. But for what we're doing right now, this is great. And you can change the zoom here if you need to zoom out or zoom in. So I'm going to close this. Now this doesn't look any different really, but if we go back to our files view, you see this little button popped up. In a project you can have multiple layers. If you're looking at many different things, you can have as many as you want, and a little colored button will appear for each layer, and you can work with that separately. For this, I'm actually going to save the tagging part for the next video because I wanted to show you some of the other taxonomy options. But just really quickly as a preview, if I click this, it's going to open the essay in the screen, and this is where I will do the tagging work. So I'll save that for the next video. I just want to show you, if I go to layers, I'm going to create another one, and I'm going to go back to that other option I paused at when we were here before. I'm going to call this global, actually I'm going to call this first language. So one type of data that you will probably want about each of your essays is the language spoken by the students. Oops, and I did something illegal. You can't have a space, so it replaced it with an underscore. So I'm going to go to manual annotation, design my own. This time I'm going to click whole document. So segments is what you use when you're tagging individual words or phrases or sentences. This is information that just applies across the board to the entire file. And there's a lot less options. It's much more simple. Create layer, and there it is. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did before and click edit scheme. And this part looks the same. And again, it started it out for me with, oops, that's not what I wanted. It began my work for me with two options. I'm just going to edit those. Rename feature, so whatever languages are spoken by the students in your group. So rename feature, and I'll just put 3 in to be simple, but you could add as many as you wanted. So add feature, so there I've got these 3, and I'll show you how to use them in a minute. So this project is pretty simple. It just has the 2 layers. One is tagging for a segment specific where you have to go in and do some work, and the other one is applying to the entire file. And now see how this appeared. I've got a button for each layer for my essay, and if I had more essays, it would just keep going down. Essay 2, essay 3, essay 4, and then Ferris, first language for each essay. So before I end this video, I would like to show you this program comes with some preloaded schemes. So I'm going to click layers again, add layer. I'm going to call this one ICLE. You'll see why in a minute. Manual annotation again, but here I'm going to say use a built-in scheme. Click error analysis, and these are some that they've given to you already loaded for you to use. The Louvain error scheme was developed for a very famous corpus of learner English, and I'll show you their website in a minute. And it's a very comprehensive scheme. These 2 are actually developed by the same university that created this program for their error analysis research, which was about Spanish L1 students learning English. And so they have their own error scheme, which is very cool. So if you want to read about it, there's some documentation on the website too that goes with that. But I'm going to show you this one. So I got that layer here. If I click edit scheme, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. You can see that this one is much more detailed. It has a lot of, if I can get it into our little view here. Okay, so it goes into a lot more detail, basically, than the one that I was working with, the one that I created. And there is documentation for this scheme. The corpus that this came with, you have to pay for it, so I don't have it, but if you're interested in doing this kind of research, you might pay for it and learn more about this work. So I'm going to close that and just really quick go to their website here. So this is that corpus, International Corpus of Learner English, and if you start to do research in this area, you'll probably come across these authors: Sylvain Granger, Estelle Dagneau, Fanny Mounier, and Magali Pecot. So again, this is something that you can pay for to do research. It's a very extensive corpus, and I am not clear if when you buy the version, if the error tagging comes with it. So I'm kind of curious, but they have their error scheme that was very carefully thought out and very detailed, and it comes with UAM CorpusTool. So I think that's all that I will show in this video. The next video, I'm going to actually show you how to go into that file, our little cars essay, and tag it using the Dana Ferris scheme and the first language scheme, and then I'll just show you what the ICLE scheme looks like without going into too much detail, but just so you know that you can get as complicated as you want with this, or you can stay as simple as you want. It's kind of up to whatever your research is. So that's it for this video. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you'll stay for the 3rd video coming up.